Hey there, everyone. We are so excited. This is the Together Game Show where we explore the frameworks, the practices, the processes that help individuals connect with God, be extremely present with their family, all while pursuing the impact they hope to have and feel called to have in the world. Today, I am so excited because I have one of my very best friends and coach in here with us today. Kyson, kid, such a pleasure to have you.
Dude, so good to be here, man.
I mean, it is just the absolute best. Just to give Kyson a quick preview, or give you all a quick preview of Kyson, he is one of the most in tune people that I've ever met. Someone who's extremely intentional on aligning himself with God in his efforts to be a great husband and to serve the people around him in the way that he feels called. So, Kyson, thanks again for being here, man. It's seriously, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, dude, it feels like this is I'm excited to see what kind of conversation we have today. I don't know if we're allowed to tell people that we were roommates, but dude, those are some of the those are some of the most meaningful conversations I've ever had. So it'll be fun to see what comes up today.
Yeah, we used to have like those convos till 3 a.m. And I
Yeah.
in those days we'd even say like, should we start a podcast? So we haven't started one together, but now we get to start guesting each other, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kyson, I just want to give you the floor. Tell me, tell the people, tell us the story of you. Who's Kyson Kidd?
Dude, yeah, I mean, yeah. I appreciate the open question. Um I'm Kyson. I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I have two dogs that count as part of the family. They're sort of like one of the banes of my existence, along with one of the biggest blessings. Like it's been a huge, anyway, just like with kids, it's like just wrestling with the what it's like to take care of someone and something. And um, yeah, I'll let you, guide me as far as where you want me to go. But overall summary, I love being a father and a husband, and I love I love creating relationships that work, that are like really truly vulnerable and connected and um, filled with just like understanding of God. I'll find maybe better words for that, but I love creating relationships that feel awesome, and that's something I do in my work and in my real life. Um, as far as my career path right now, I'm focused a lot on supporting men. I love helping men do that same stuff, create relationships that work for them, um, helping them connect with God, connect with self, and connect with others. And I think that there is almost like an epidemic level of loneliness in men,
Hmm.
where men feel like they have to kind of solve their life on their own. They're not allowed to ask for help, or if you ask for help, you're less of a man. There's a lot of different things that men face today, I think, and so I help men kind of step into a powerful place in their life, and not just powerful but connected. I think a lot of times we see the hero in superhero movies, and you think like, oh, they're so powerful, they don't need anyone, right? Like there's
Hmm.
this false idea about being a hero means you don't need anything, and you're like a one man show. You don't need anyone else's support. But that's not the way, like that's not a fulfilling life. And if you watch the rest of every superhero show, you'll see the parts where like, oh, Batman feels lonely, or Superman's on his own. His relationships aren't working very well because he's constantly in this hero role. And so, you could probably say things a thousand different ways, but the way I love to help men step out of the like false hero role and step in with Jesus Christ and
Hmm.
create the life that they really want to.
Whoa. I love every piece of that. What I'm curious about is I've actually seen sort of this movement, and maybe it's just because of the space that we're in, but I've seen multiple men within circles that I'm in that are creating sort of these men's groups and are serving other men. And so I'm curious to ask you specifically though, what was there like an experience? Was there a moment where you were like, that that is the thing that God's asking me to do right now, because you could have served anybody, right? And so curious to know, what was there an experience, and if so, would you mind sharing that with us?
Dude, yes. Are we allowed to say dude on this podcast? I'm gonna say dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Say it so
absolutely.
much. So many. I'm gonna say dude a lot. It's just the way. That's how I talk when I'm talking to people I really am close to. So,
At least 30 more times then.
okay, cool, dude. Um, yeah, there are a couple experiences that come to mind. Um, I have been a coach for like 6 years, and I got into coaching originally just to like learn about myself and emotions and like what's going on. And so for quite a few years there, I was just coaching women. And there's a point where things kind of switched and just flip-flopped exactly where like, oh, I think I'm supposed to coach men.
Mm,
To give you like, let's go way back into the past. I One of my biggest life struggles, like 18 plus 19 plus years of my life struggle, involves pornography, like being just constantly pulled in by pornography. um, I got into it when I was super young, before I even knew what to like watch out for. um, and that's pretty common. I know that's not like a unique thing, but most kids are getting in at a pretty young age now. And for whatever reason, I don't know if I'd call it an addiction. I don't love that word, but there were times when it was like, every day I'm like, oh, I gotta not use that. I gotta not look at porn. Just a constant fight. And so later on, when I stepped into the coaching world, there's sort of this new approach to any struggle. And it's this question of like, what's going on beneath it? What's down in the roots beneath my struggle with porn? Instead of just like, I need a pep talk, like help me stop, right? And so I started looking at like, what are the actual roots beneath struggling with pornography? And I'll do like long story short, and you can tell me if you want me to do long story, medium short, or whatever. But somewhere down in that journey, a couple years in, I had some experiences where my relationship with pornography changed. My previous belief had been that like I was just going to have to hold on tight for the rest of my life, like
mm,
just kind of like focus on other things. Your bishops, church leaders would tell me like, you're just always going to struggle with this. Like this is something that doesn't go away. You just have to like have more willpower, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I guess the rest of my life's going to be super hard. And what was cool is in the coaching, as I started to learn to become a coach, I would also get mentors and coaches for me. And so, one coach in particular, I was working with him, not even related to pornography, but actually about my relationship in my business. And we had this conversation once that helped me realize how much I was blaming other people for my emotions,
mm.
for my struggles. And it kind of like rocked my universe. Like all of a sudden, because it started with my wife, and he's like, yeah, man, like, he helped me realize like I'm blaming her for what I'm feeling. And I had like a series of flashbacks where I was like, oh, I've been blaming everybody, like my parents, my siblings, my friends, like old girlfriends, everybody.
Yeah.
And it terrified me, but it also gave me this opportunity to practice something new, which was to be fully, or practice being fully accountable for my emotions, my fears, my inner world. And the way that this relates to your question, right, of like when I felt called to serve men, there's something that happened the next day after I made this commitment to practice. I noticed that the temptation for pornography like disappeared. Like the waters were still, the storm was calm.
Whoa.
And I didn't know that was a thing. Like I had never experienced that before. I'd experienced like ebbs and flow in the temptation level, but it was like down to zero. And that was the first time. So I experienced like 3 months of that where the temptation was gone. I started to call it like freedom. I'm feeling free from porn. And then every time it would pop back up, I just would learn something else that was down in the roots beneath, and the freedom would grow and the freedom would come back. And so right around that time, I was like, oh, I think I'm supposed to help other men figure it. I at least had that desire come in, and there were a few experiences after that where it just felt clear. It's funny, like without me telling anybody that, hey, I'm switching over to coaching men, I started having people just like reaching out, like, hey, do you work with pornography? You ever worked with pornography? So I had a bunch of clients start coming in, And then I kind of just pivoted to like, let's figure out how to unravel or crack the code on what is actually going on with pornography. Why are so many men struggling? And it's been just awesome ever since.
As incredible, and it truly is. Pornography is such a pull, and whether or not it's pornography, I imagine you see every day, right? Where um, we are pulled, or you could even say addicted. Maybe you don't like that term, but to something, right? Like something in the world pulls us, and maybe even holds us captive at times. I'm curious to know what you've seen, right? You've started to work with men. You mentioned accountability. You mentioned this idea of blaming others. Like, do you mind? Is that something you've seen that's super common with the men you work with? And like, is that also an epidemic? Like, are we all doing that?
Oh, dude, yeah, that's been the craziest, one of the craziest things about learning, my own journey with pornography and then also supporting others is I thought it would be a different, like a totally different set of things for each person. And for sure, there are unique elements to each person's journey, but like there are basically like 15 to 20 patterns that I've seen in every single person that struggles with porn. Like I'll usually, I ask a lot of questions. I don't do just like, this is your problem. But as I ask questions, I'll wait for like three or four of those patterns to come through. And then I'll just sort of like finish the sentences for them. Like, do you also have this going on? You also feel this way? Are you also blaming, are you blaming your wife? Or uh, different people are ready to understand it from different perspectives. But I would totally say that um, that's going on for 95% of people struggling with porn. There will
Mm,
be some that don't know it consciously yet. It can take some time to find that. I'd say absolutely. And then I think, I mean, dude, the world is right now it is built on, in a lot of ways, it's built on a system of revenge and almost like a debt system, right? Like you owe me, you hurt me, so I got to get revenge on you, or you're going to be canceled for saying the wrong thing, right? Like think about the blame that's underneath that. You said the wrong words, so you made me feel some way that I can't handle, and now you owe me something. You deserve to be canceled and to not have a chance at success in your life. And basically is what that game turns into. Um and I
mm.
think I think there's a lot of places where that plays out, but I think marriage and family is one of the primary places where there's that. It's just tempting to blame other people because then you don't have to take accountability.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
talk to me about how uh, reducing the amount of blame we're putting on other people. Later, I might ask you how to do that, right? Like there must be like a process or some way of thinking of that. But as you do that, as you reduce the blame you have for other people, and as you start holding yourself accountable, how does that impact your relationship with your wife, with your kids? Curious to know the ripple effect there.
Oof, yeah, dude, that's a huge question. Uh, the first image that comes to mind is kind of starting to practice and to create in your mind like a delineation between you and other people. Um, a lot of people, another common struggle is like people pleasing, just feeling like it's so hard to say no. I got to do everything other people say. That's totally connected to blame. um, and maybe another word for this, instead of just blame, there's also this idea of accountability. So am I accountable for my emotions? Are you accountable for yours? Anytime you start to blur that line of who's responsible for what I feel or for what you feel, um, as you start to shift around that accountability or blame, you just get all kinds of unhealthy uh, symptoms that come up, and unhealthy disconnection and frustration, resentment. Um, yeah, does that answer your question? I feel like it's hard to figure out. Should I just like deep dive to like 300 miles down, or is that feeling like it answered
Yeah.
your question?
Well, all I would say is, I want to dive 300 miles down. But I think for the context of time, I think it provided a good surface level for us to think about. This is why, though, everybody, I love my friendship with Kyson. Is it's like I love diving 300 feet down or miles down, however deep we're going.
Oh,
Um,
dude, let me go 1.5 kilometers down here. and add to, like, this is for me, this is how being accountable makes sense. So each of our emotions are based on our stories and our beliefs.
Mm,
So a quick example, like my daughter, when she was first born, we would like play video games or like watch a movie, and if it was loud, I'd always be afraid, like, oh, she's gonna get nervous or she's gonna get sad or be scared of the loud noises. But for the first like year, she wasn't. It didn't phase her at all. And
mm.
then there's an experience later where all of a sudden she did start to have fear. Like there was a loud noise that she connected with, like, oh, danger. And so from that point, she did start to have fear when there was a loud noise. So without that belief that it was dangerous, um, uh, you can actually hear, I'm pretty sure my daughter's crying in the background.
Oh, mine might be too in this moment. So I'm not sure which we're hearing, or maybe both.
I think I hear mine. Can I go tell her to go talk to mom?
Yeah,
Speaking of like balancing family and work, I'll be right back.
100%, 100%. This is the best. It seriously is what we're all about around here, is connecting the impact you're having in the world with maintaining your relationship with God, uh, being hyper present with your family. So honestly, if Kyson comes back in here with his kid on his lap, all the better, you know? What a joy. Uh, it's fascinating. What it's all about, really, are the relationships that we have and which ones are more important than our family. Um, I don't think there are any. So let's give him a second to hop back in here.
Okay, so our emotions are based on our beliefs and our stories. So without a belief, you actually won't have an emotional response. When my daughter was just like one, or 0 to 1, I used to always be worried that she'd get afraid of the show we were watching if it was loud or if there's like an action scene. She wasn't afraid until later. She had an experience where she connected loud noises could be dangerous, and then she started to experience fear with loud noises.
Mm,
So I guess what I'm trying to say here is like my past experiences and the stories and beliefs I've created about those experiences, those are what bring up my emotions. And so it doesn't make sense for me to blame you for my story, my belief, my past experience. I can bring it up and say, hey, let's say we get in an argument or something. I can say, like, I am feeling some emotion about this. I'm feeling frustrated, but it's not your fault. I'm communicating that with you. This is my experience, my beliefs, my emotions. I'm going to go figure it out. Or do you want to talk about it? Whatever it is. But it's this separation of saying, I also can't be responsible for your stories and your past experience, but I can support you as you work through it. I'm not going to take that accountability though.
yeah, and I just think in my experience, it is so difficult to separate that, right? Like you talk about the importance of the delineation between each person and those emotions. Like I find myself being concerned with how others are viewing me, what they're thinking of me, and then also feeling responsible of how I'm impacting others, right? And so, what an interesting balance. Related, but to shift gears a little bit, you were telling me about something before we hopped on today about a particular practice that you use to help those that you're coaching. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit, especially as a means to help us with part of these processes, right? To be accountable and to be good stewards over our responsibilities, right? And so, talk to me a little bit more about this process that you use.
Dude, yeah. Okay, this is one of my favorite things to teach. One of my favorite things to help coach people through because it applies to everything. And it's totally related, like you said, it's totally related to accountability. Some people may have heard of this concept. It's called the drama triangle, and I have a little bit of a unique approach to this. But the drama triangle is essentially a way to understand how you're relating to other people, especially the drama side. Like when you're feeling powerless or disconnected in a relationship, it's usually one of these three roles.
Mm,
So I'll explain, and I can even send you some screenshots that you can put up for people watching and listening. Um, the three roles of the drama triangle are the hero, the victim, and the villain.
okay.
Imagine, at each of the points of the triangle, you've got a hero at one point, the victim, and the villain. And what's interesting is like if you're a normal human, you experience these three roles like every day, possibly all day. Normal humans rotate through these three all day long. And then even if you've been practicing, I've been actively practicing like stepping out of the drama and doing the healthier side, and it's still a thing where, probably once a day or at least every few days, I'm like, oh, I can feel the drama. I can feel myself playing
Mm,
victim. I can feel myself playing the hero. And just to break down a little bit about each of these roles, and this takes practice. It's okay to like not get this immediately. Just kind of take the parts that fit for you today, right? But the hero role is basically like I'm accountable for everybody. I need to save everybody. If I don't do it, no one else will do it. It's kind of your classic like Batman Begins or classic superhero movie where like they're trying to save everybody, and when you look at other people, it will feel like they're the victim, right? Like, oh, there's no one to help them. Like I have to do it. And it almost will feel like, oh, God's not even going to help them if I don't, like I've got to go do this. The victim is the role that we're the most familiar with. Most people are just like, oh, I can't do it. I don't have the resources. There's not enough this, there's not enough that. I want people to feel bad for me because look how terrible my life has been.
mm,
The villain is basically the same thing, just turned a little darker. Like now it's your fault that I feel this way. You've done this to me. How could you do this? It's a little more punishing. And
yeah.
then you rotate back to a lot of times people will go after they go villain mode, then they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry I hurt you. Now I need to save you again. I need to save you from the hurt I caused you. And then you just cycle back through to hero and keep going forever until you die. That's
You,
that's kind of
okay,
that's like the curse. Yeah.
you see me smiling because I'm like, okay, this resonates with me quite a bit. And I, like you said, I think it would probably resonate with everybody. I want to ask you about the hero role because I'm looking at my own life and like I sometimes when I feel like I'm in the hero role and I'm like, I'm gonna carry the world on my back, I find myself at some point eventually looking around and being like, either people aren't thankful enough or like, why aren't they helping? So walk me through how that's related. Like, how does that fit?
Dude, yeah, so it's crazy because in like one sentence or two, one paragraph of thoughts, if you want to call it that, you can like rotate through all of them, right? So at 1 minute, you're like, I want to help everybody. Like, I want to have such a noble mission to save the world. Then when you go, oh, no one's thankful enough. Why does no one care about what I'm saying? That's down to victim. And then it's just like a tiny baby step over to like, it's the same phrasing, but like, what's wrong with you people? Like, why does like none of you see me? No one appreciates me. That's a little more like you could go villain mode with that if you try to throw that kind of stuff at people. Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause that's I think originally I hear the idea of the triangle and I imagine like, oh, I probably like live in one of those most of the time. And so it actually clears things up a lot for me when you say, no, you're probably looping through those within like any given thought, which is actually kind of scary. So if we're each experiencing this loop, uh, how do you A, recognize it? And then is there any way to combat it?
Dude, yes. So first is to start recognizing it. Just slow. You got to slow down. You got to commit to practice observing yourself and just becoming aware of what's going on for you. If you're in reaction mode, you will be in drama.
Mm,
Like what's interesting too about the drama triangle, if someone, let's say you like walk into a room and you talk to your wife and she's like, hey, I need you to do the dishes, like the dishes haven't been done for 3 days and like I can't do it. It's way too much. I need you to do it. So you can hear those like need words or victim a little bit. And what's interesting is it will invite you to step into one of the other roles. You'll either go hero mode and like, okay, yeah, I'll totally save you, honey. Like I really want to help you, feel back on top of things or whatever. Or you go to villain and be like, I hate the way you asked me that. Like, why are you always telling me what to do? So
Yeah.
when we step into drama, it kind of invites our other relationships to step in as well. And so for me, it was really worth it to have a conversation with my wife and say, I'm committing to, like, here's the principle of the drama triangle. I want to commit to myself and to you that I'm going to be practicing identifying when I'm in drama and figure out what it even means to step out of it. And then she was like, I want to do that too. Let's both practice. And so there was a time period where, I mean, it's terrifying. Like the sensation in my body was just like, like I'm gonna die. It's like so, it's hard because there's these conversations that feel so volatile and so like high tension between us, right? And there's
Yeah.
always those conversations that every couple has where you're like, I'm just never gonna talk about that again. It's like too much.
Yeah.
So we started to like crack into those a little bit, and we would take breaks. Like we'd say, hey, I'm totally in drama right now. I recognize it. I would love to take 10 minutes to myself and just like feel through it. And then let's talk after. And then there were times when I'd be like, hey, are you feeling ready to talk about this? And she'd be like, no, not today. Like, okay,
Mm.
cool. Let's plan to talk tomorrow. Like we were doing it more intentionally instead of just like being frustrated, and kind of reacting through it. So, um, I want to get to your question of how to start stepping out of it. Step one is start to look for it. You got to observe what's going on in you. I would start to feel an actual, like a tightness in my guts that was just like, oh, that's the feeling of drama. I don't even know which drama thing it is yet. I just know I don't feel good. Let me go journal about it, or let me start to talk about it. Um, so yeah, step one, awareness, and then I'll give you three powerful practices to get you out of it.
Oh, love it.
Deep breath, man, because these
Yeah,
are
I'm ready.
they're super simple, but it's really cool. I'm hoping I can just like explain this in a concise way here. The three practices, the three antidotes, and you can picture these being on the inside of the triangle. So on the outside corners, you've got the hero, the victim, and the villain. On the inside, you've got accountability, vulnerability,
Mm.
and abundance. And I'll explain each of those a little bit. We've already talked about accountability, right? So I'm going to
Yeah.
say, this is my emotion, my story. That's your emotion, your story. So, like, I'm not going to save you from what you're feeling because that's your thing, but I could support you. Can you feel the difference in drama? Saving
Yeah.
is like I'm the hero. And for those that are Christian, like saving is basically I'm going to be the savior. I'm going to be like Jesus for you instead of I'm going to support you in helping you, like support you as you connect with Jesus and let him carry it for you. It's a
Mm.
totally different game. Um,
Well, yeah.
question on that?
Oh, I love that point because it's almost a secret thing, right? Where I think in some ways sometimes we may even want to take that role, right? Like we want to be seen as the hero. And so what an interesting thing though to recognize that in that sort of like prideful move of wanting to be the hero, we're accidentally trying to step into the savior's role, uh, which like is a story we're all aware of from the pre-existence, right? So how fascinating is that that sort of ties into our experience right now too?
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. If you're feeling disconnected from Jesus Christ or from your higher power, there's a huge chance that you're in hero mode. Like,
Mm,
I would say it's, yeah, 99% of the time. Um, and then what's interesting, as we go from accountability to being vulnerable, which I see as kind of the antidote. Well, they're all kind of antidotes to all three. So they kind of mix together. But
oh,
being vulnerable is where you actually just say what you're really feeling. Hey,
mm,
I'm experiencing a lot of frustration right now. I'm feeling pretty sad about the way you said that. Or I'm feeling confused about this decision we're making together. Um, it's just this honest, like, so imagine saying that back and forth going, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I'm not saying it's your fault. So that's the accountable. You can kind of bounce back and forth. I'm feeling, I feel uncomfortable with this topic when it comes up. Again, I'm not saying that's you, that's me, but I'd like to talk about it. And they're all, I love these three because they all can kind of be summed up in in a couple sentences, but real quick, let's talk about abundance. So abundance is an opposite to scarcity. So being in a place of scarcity is this fear that there's not enough, which again relates to Jesus. For me, is like that I don't believe if I'm scarce, if I'm feeling like scarcity, that means I don't believe that God can find a solution with me. I don't believe I can create a solution with him. I don't believe I deserve it. There's going to be not enough of something, not enough love, not enough time, not enough money, not enough food, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you can step into abundance and trust, I always think with this principle of abundance, I always think of Peter walking on water.
Mm,
He's the abundance and the vulnerability there to say, "Can I walk on the water with you?" Like I want to have that experience. I trust that Jesus can give me it if he wants to. Versus like, no, I shouldn't ask for that. We're just trying to survive here, right? It's a very scarcity type thing. Like we're just trying to survive the storm. Let's just get back home. But he's so abundant to say like, I would love to try this. Can I walk to you? So anyway, just to sum up, like my favorite phrase, two phrases that help people practice all three of those is just to say, I'm feeling this, and which kind of takes care of accountability and vulnerability. Like I'm feeling it.
hmm Yeah,
And
you're
then
not
the
making me
next,
feel it. It's a fact that I am feeling this
yeah,
way.
so you might sneak in that third phrase of like, it's my emotion
Uh-huh.
to be extra accountable. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling whatever. And then the next phrase is, I would love blank. So you start to tap into that abundant desire. I would love
Mm,
to create this conversation in an hour after I've like worked through some emotions. Or I would love to have an open discussion with you about the way we do the dishes. I would love to have a conversation about this vacation. Are you open to that? So it's basically, I'm feeling this and I would love this. And then you leave the same opportunity for whoever you're talking with, for your spouse, for her to say, okay, well, I'm not feeling ready for that. I feel frustrated as well. And then she can say, I would love to wait an hour. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what's really going on. Why are you so upset when this comes up? So it just creates this really cool dialogue to say, I'm feeling this and I would love this. Does that work for you? And you just practice the heck out of that. Yeah. Tell me what, does that
Yeah.
make sense? How's that clicking?
Oh, it clicks in perfectly. And I seriously wish we had like 3 hours just to keep diving deeper and deeper. I have one comment and then I want to ask you a final question. That's right in line with what you were just telling us about. So one thing that came to my mind as you were talking about, those three: accountability, abundance, and the third one.
Vulnerability.
And vulnerability. It's fascinating. My wife and I recently have been talking about do you trust the caller? Meaning, do you trust God? Do you trust Him to be the one in power and you channel that power to go and do good work? And then do you trust Him enough to then accept the calling that He's given you? Because if you trust Him and you trust His calling, that the calling came from Him, and therefore it's like, how can you fail? Right? It's that abundance mentality of how can I fail? I want to serve the world. I want to be pleasing to God, and I'm going to move forward in faith. Do I trust the caller? Do I trust the calling He's given me? That's been like our mantra recently, and it reminds me a lot of. It fits in perfectly, I think, with this triangle that you taught us, the drama triangle. Um,
That's
just in
beautiful.
just in closing, man, I want to be able to tie it back in full circle. We talked drama triangle. We talked a lot about accountability, um, and and I also want to tie it back to your services, right? Because I think you're doing such a remarkable service. There's a lot. Like you said, it's an epidemic, right? Of pornography. And if it's not pornography, it's something similar to it, right? It's binding us, it's holding us captive. And I just want to let you kind of provide some closing thoughts of like how can we use the drama triangle and getting out of it? How can we use accountability to help us overcome the things that are binding us so that we can find that freedom that you described?
Mm, thanks for the question. Yeah. This is the way it's coming into my mind right now. If you can practice stepping out of drama. And I love picturing like, okay, the drama triangle, it's really about stepping out of the triangle to the outside. And I picture the inside of the triangle is the power place.
Mm,
If you want to be truly powerful, you need to practice being accountable, vulnerable, and abundant. And the way I feel that is like I want to actually stand with Jesus Christ there in the middle. So
mm,
that's the way I usually put the diagram, is like when you do all three of those things, accountable, vulnerable, and abundant, you will be standing with Jesus Christ. Like
mm,
if you can imagine yoking up with him and letting him enable you and empower you in all the things you're doing, it will almost feel natural to be accountable, vulnerable, and abundant. And what it will do is start a chain reaction. When you step out of drama, it also invites other people to step out of drama, to step into, I mean, these sound like coaching terms, but really they're deeply spiritual terms, like to be accountable, to let Jesus be the savior, to let Jesus be the provider, the caller, uh,
mm.
and then to take that vulnerable, all that stuff you feel that you've been afraid to like really share, and to share that with Jesus. Like it's just a cool way to look at that. And I would say that the mission I'm on is to help men step out of drama and to like master themselves so that they can step in with Jesus Christ and then help the people around them do the same.
Mm,
And so whether it's pornography or struggling with your emotions or anxiety or whatever it is, um, that's kind of the chain reaction I'm creating, helping people create, is stepping out of drama, taking accountability, enjoy. Like, dude, I love being vulnerable. I love being accountable and abundant. Those sound terrifying when you're used to living in drama, because you feel powerless and it feels like that's going to take my power away even more. But when you step in to those three principles, when you step in with Jesus Christ, that's when real power comes.
mm,
Where you can like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like just the changes that God has helped me make, that he's created in me over the last few years. And over the last 6 months, I've been even a deeper dive into like how I found little pockets of drama in my life where like, oh, I'm playing the victim over here. I'm playing the hero.
mm,
And as I have let those ideas, as I've as I've let God kind of bring me back into the center of true power and confidence, I've been able to have difficult experiences with so much peace.
mm,
To have times when I'm like, are we going to pay the bills, or are we going to have money for this thing that we really need? And to just feel this clarity, instead of like, I need to go save myself from this. I need to go like, sacrifice everything I have to try and make money. There's this deep, calm trust
mm.
in the process and in the caller, right? This trust in God that he's called me to do a thing, and that the right people and the right things will come into play. So yeah, I guess for those listening, like if you aren't feeling peace, or if you're feeling uh if you're in those roles of drama, this is the invitation to come and hang out and experience what it's like to step in with Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of different ways to understand that, but I've loved this framework of the drama triangle. And so it's cool for the men. We've got a free men's group on Facebook where you can come and hang out and have these kinds of conversations. We have group coaching that I run with my good friend Shane, an incredible coach. And then I've got private coaching offerings as well. And I also coach women occasionally, like especially if you feel like you want to support your husband and you want to step out of the drama that you're in with him. I just would love to have you come hang out and have some deep conversations and see if we can kind of open that up.
Ugh, I love it. And I will include, Kyson, your links to your services below in the description. So everyone, you can access those. Um, and would highly recommend building a relationship with Kyson Kid. It's the best. We're gonna wrap. Like I said, I wish we had hours, Kyson, to keep diving in. I have loved having you on today. Thanks so much for being with us, man.
Dude, yeah, it's been great. I appreciate you.
Hey, you too. Talk soon.
Yeah, bye.